Call this meeting to order. Mary, roll please.
Archer,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Redlin, Howard,
Here.
Showalter.
Here. Now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. First on the agenda is public hearings. We'll start off with item A. This is a public hearing for an unfit structure at 302 West 15th Street here in Goodland. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5 o'clock. We'll invite Zach up to give us an update.
Have not had any communication from the property owner. Nothing has been done to the property. It still sits as it was. This property has been ongoing since 2000, and nothing has been done with it. So the 30 days I feel is appropriate to allow the timeline before we move forward with the next steps.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for our code enforcement officer? If not, do we have any members of the public here to speak on 302 West 15th? Okay. We will close this public hearing then for 302 West 15th at 5:01. Item B, unfit structure at 1615 Center. We'll open the public hearing at 5:02. And I'll turn it over to Zach.
This property's been sitting vacant for a number of years now. It's got windows busted out. It looks at one point they might have tried to start remodeling it, but didn't get very far into it. There's a basement on it, which the enclosure to get down to it is now fallen in on itself. So pretty unsafe to get down into that, and then just deterioration. It's got an abandoned motor vehicle in the backyard of it, and then the shed in the back's not in very good shape either. No contact from the owner. He has passed away, I believe last year it was. And I have not heard anything from any of the family.
Okay. We have any questions for the building inspector from the commission? Hearing none, any members of the public wish to speak on 1615 Center? Hearing none, I will close this public hearing at 5:03. Thank you. Item C, unfit structure at 1004 Kansas Avenue. I'll open this public hearing at 5:03 and turn it over to our code enforcement officer.
In 2023, there was a water leak right off of where they connect to the main. It is on their side, though. It was pooling up in the yard and starting to run out into the street. Water superintendent and myself came to the conclusion of shutting it off until repairs were made. No repairs were ever made. The family that was living in it had to find a new place to live. It is currently vacant. Down in the basement, if you dare going down there, there's a couple steps that are pretty scary, but one of the foundation walls is cinder block, one is brick, and one just has plaster over dirt, basically to keep the dirt from caving in. And that's what you can see underneath it. The rest of it was all built after that was put on. There is a garage on that lot, which is in actually pretty decent shape, just needs some cosmetic stuff done to it to make it look good. So I've had no contact from the owners since last year when they were supposed to clean up all the stuff off the porch, which they did get that finally done, but there is a car still sitting in the driveway. Broken picnic table in the backyard and that kind of stuff.
Zach, I just had a question about contact with owners. When you say that you have contact with an owner or fail to have contact with an owner, are you talking about contact in writing or by telephone or by both? How do you contact your owners?
I send letters first with my phone number on it, and I've also, with this property, spoken to Kayla Cowan on the phone in the past and haven't had anything back. They were supposed to let me know last year when they went to clean it up for me to do an inspection and failed to do that. The door just sits wide open, so after everything was gone, I just went in, seen if anybody was there, and then looked around.
So we're for sure the renters are out.
Yes.
Any other questions for our building inspector? If not, any members of the public here to speak on 1004 Center? Can I have you come to the podium, Caleb?
Hello, I am Kayla Cowan. I am the owner of 1004 Kansas, along with my husband, who was unable to be here due to work. So I'll speak a little bit about this property. I don't have anything to dispute anything that Zach says about the property. When we purchased it, we had a family move in there. They completely destroyed the house, broke windows on a number of occasions, and there was a water issue. So the tenants they were already planning on finding new residents. They owed money, different scenario, but I'm actually still going through the court process with them for that. So I would love to be able to use that money that I received from them through a judgment that I have been granted to be able to put that money back into the property for all the repairs and destruction that they caused. I would like to say that we have had continuous insurance on the property I brought the last 2 years, I guess, as verification. We're up to date on the property taxes, which I guess based on the amount that I'm paying and based on the amounts of other rental properties that we have, I'm not sure why we should demolish it. So I'm looking for ways around that today, and looking for some input on what is needed in order for us we're not trying to rent it at this point. We do understand there's a water leak. There's nobody in there. We're not advertising it for rent. With winter, it's really hard to make some of those repairs. And so, yes, we definitely have intentions of fixing the water line in addition to fixing the broken windows, doors. But until we have the funds available to be able to do that, then that might be a little difficult. We also have had a couple people offer to purchase it, so that's also something that we're kind of entertaining as well throughout the process. The electrical system is functional, so as far as we know, there's nothing wrong with like the electrical system. Or the plumbing. It's just the water line. I believe that is all that I have. Any questions?
When did the last renter move out?
I don't have the exact date, but it would have been last year's 23 or 24.
Okay.
And we've been going through the county court system since then and
Sure.
working on monthly status hearings to try to recoup some of that lost money.
Gotcha. You guys have a plan in place for what you might do if you're not able to recoup money from former renters?
Well, I was looking at some different options. Again, we might be able to still sell the property. It might be, as he said, the garage is in decent condition, and so we don't feel like there's a total waste there either. As far as the house goes, yeah, we have plans, not specifically to get that fixed, but as soon as we have funds, we would love to put that in there. So put that money into the rental house to get it fixed up to be able to rent again for the housing shortage locally.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Cowan?
Are the basement walls secure enough to?
That's actually news to me. I haven't been into the property, and I guess that's news to me that anybody's been in the property.
I think one of the things we would need would be a timeline
Okay.
to make a judgment.
Can I ask a question? What needs to be repaired specifically? Obviously, the windows, the door,
The water.
Or I guess can get with him specifically at a separate time, if that works.
I think probably the answer to that question is just working with the building official, once the hearing is over with, to try to come up with a list for sure of exactly what would need to be repaired, and working through that list in a fashion that, would, be on a timeline that we can all agree on, so that way it just gets taken care of,
Sure.
so.
And I haven't been trying to avoid contact with Zach. It's just I haven't had any updates to provide him
Sure.
since
Okay.
we talked.
Well, we will take all that to account here in a little bit when we make our motion.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who'd like to speak on 1004 Kansas? If not, I would close this public hearing at 5:10. Mr. Colleen, do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Thank you. And we will move on to number 4, presentations. Mr. Jake Kling, our city attorney.
More papers.
Thank you.
Okay, how is everybody?
Good. We're great, Jake, thank you.
Good. It's everybody's favorite topic again. It's Open Meetings Act. Obviously, with you guys, you've already heard the spiel once, so really a lot of this is more of to the education of our newest member, so Ms. Archer. So basically, what I usually do, just so you're aware, is after the election cycles, for sure, when we get new people on the board, if we keep the same people, we go through kind of what I call the refresher course of what the Kansas Open Meetings Act is and what that entails and how that applies to you guys. For new people, a lot of times this is their first position in a public entity, and therefore they're not really used to or understand what the rules are and why it matters and what pertains to all of that. So, as I've always given you guys, I just handed to Ms. Archer our handy-dandy guideline book. I really like this. It's from 2017. I like this a lot better than what's on the Attorney General's website. Not that I disagree with it. It's just that this is a lot easier to digest and follow. And so you guys all still have all that, and obviously we keep it here in the city office as well, so that you kind of know what's going on and all of that. So we'll just kind of get started from just a basic standpoint. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, there is COMA and CORA. Obviously, Kansas Open Records Act and Kansas Open Meetings Act. CORA really what doesn't apply to you guys because you don't really keep records per se that anybody would be able to get access to outside of probably your emails, unless there was certain things that met exceptions to that. So off of that, then, this is primarily about the meeting, because about your guys' only interaction is when you guys are together and you're holding a meeting and stuff like that. So that's how we get started off, is when is the rules of the Kansas Open Meetings Act, when are they triggered? There's a 3-step process. And so, yes, there will be a test after this. She's writing furiously on her piece of paper.
Just for
I'm
the new
paying
ones, right?
attention.
I get it, and I appreciate that. I will tell you, though, it's all in here, just so you know. I appreciate it, though. No gold stickers in this participation group. So, what is a meeting? There's 3 things that essentially trigger when you have to follow all of the open meetings rules, okay? 1, it's really any gathering where you intend to have interactive communication, okay? Doesn't require you to be like, okay, how are you going to vote? What are we going to do here? It's purely about talking about the business of the city, okay? 2, by a majority of the members, okay? So you guys obviously know when you hit a quorum, that's the majority of the members. So here's your first pop quiz. How many members are on the city council?
I know this one.
Not you guys. 5. So how many people need to meet to trigger that? Exactly right. Exactly right. So if 3 of you meet and you start discussing anything to do with the city, okay, you've kind of got that. And that third one is for the purposes of discussing the affairs of the city, all right? So, easy when we're in here, right? You schedule a meeting, you're all sitting here, you're talking great. Then after the meeting, you adjourn, all right? And then just say, even though right now there's 4 of you in the room, but we do have a 5th person online, right? So we've got Brooke, who's on Zoom or whatever he wants to claim it. I don't know what he's doing. He's sitting downstairs. I saw him when I walked in here. But I'm just kidding. But let's just say if he's on there, he's on a phone call or anything like that. Do you all have to be sitting in here to reach a quorum? What if no one is sitting in here, but you're all on the phone? Do you have a quorum? You do. You do. So a meeting doesn't have to be in person. It can be online. It can be through your phone calls. It can be through a text message, as we've talked about before. Email chains, Twitter, X, anything like that. Heck, if you even have a Facebook Live group going on. I don't know a lot about this stuff, but some people do it, I guess. But anyway, you've got a meeting. You've triggered it, okay? So, when you're doing all of that, does it have to be on like agenda items and all of that stuff? The business of the city? No. If it has anything to do with the city, you're going to trigger it. So here's the classic example of what kind of happens a lot of times inadvertently. We go through this meeting. Everybody's good. Everybody, then we get our motion to adjourn. Brooke always seconds it because he's ready to go home. And we get downstairs. We go down the stairs, and before you get into your vehicle, two of you start talking about one thing, and then the third person walks up and says, hey, I have been thinking it's kind of weird what we saw on that, that open meetings thing, right? Have you triggered a meeting then? You have. You started holding a meeting outside of a place inadvertently, but you've triggered it, okay? Another example I use all the time because it's so easy to do. You guys get emails, right? You get emails. Usually Ken will send you guys an email, or Mary or whoever, saying, hey, just for your own attention, we're going to have this unfit structure on here and all that stuff. Somebody then accidentally does a reply all asking, well, who's the owner? Have we triggered a meeting? We have. We have. Here's the other thing too. The other thing that inadvertently will happen sometimes that triggers the meeting is not that you all three talk to each other, or that you text each other, or you email each other, but instead JJ has an idea at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then he texts it to Jason while he's down there playing golf 2025 on his TV. And then, yes, what happens when you put it on Snapchat. And so then Jason then goes ahead and he's like, hey, and then he pulls up Ann and starts talking to her on the phone while he's on tee box number 5. Have we triggered a meeting? You have. It's called serial communication. And it just runs down the line, and in the moment that serial communication hits the third person, you've triggered a meeting. Very hard to follow, but you see where I'm saying. You can do it, okay? So, after you have done that, you've triggered a meeting. So let's say, okay, how do you comply with the rules, right? Do you actually have to send out notices that you're holding a meeting? Do you have to do that? Jason, you're shaking your head yes? You do? You are? Okay. No. You do not have to actually have a notice. If you have an emergency meeting, do we have enough time to put notice out there? Can they publish a newspaper in the first time we have no, we do not. The point is it has to be open. Anybody can go to it. And if there's a certain person or any citizen or anybody out here that wants to have notice, they can send that request to the city. It's like, anytime there's a meeting, I want to have notice of that, right? Okay. So, you don't have to, but we generally do. And they say put it in the newspaper and all that. We put it out there. It's on our Facebook page. It's on our website. And I don't know where else we put it, but it's out there. Okay? So, the final thing on that too, this doesn't just apply to you, right? Because we also have, you've got department heads, but we also have a lot of committees, right? And you have a lot of other sub parts to this, right? All of them also have to follow the Open Meetings Act and stuff, right? So a tree board meets, quite frankly, if 3 of the people at the tree board want to go and talk about how much they love trees, and they go to the coffee shop to talk about the newest blue spruce, that's what's going to trigger it, usually. Again, kind of hard to follow, but that's where it's at. I will tell you what kind of always baffled my mind, it's a little weird, demented, I guess, but people love to know when the cemetery board is meeting.
I do.
Anybody gone to a cemetery board meeting? Well, you should. People are dying to go to them. Come on, guys. That was good. Jeez. So anyway, That, you can trigger a meeting. So you got the notice out there, you let people go, they show up, we have an agenda and all that stuff, right? You come through the front door, you can pick up an agenda. Do we have to have an agenda? Anybody know that one? Do you have to? You're right, Janice, we don't. If you do, though, you can't keep a secret. I don't know why you'd make one if you want to make it a secret. But ultimately, it has to be then out there for the public. So the same idea. We always start the meeting saying, okay, do we have these? Did anybody have that? And the basics of 4-H or parliamentary procedures. Does anybody have a problem with the agenda as it is presented? Somebody says, well, I would like to add item 13, 14, whatever, and all that stuff, right? So then you can do all that. Just because you put out an agenda, and just because the agenda has these topics or these discussion items or whatever, you're not locked into that, right? You can amend it and change it at any time. And we've done it before. Again, it just happens. Things happen, people show up, all that fun stuff, right? Okay. So, we go through all of that. The next thing is, when is it that you can hold a meeting but people aren't invited to it? What is it called? Executive session, right? And can you just do it just because? Right? Sure you can. Just say it's for non-elected personnel. That's what we do all the time, right? Anybody else that's not in there is not elected most of the time, so what do we care? No. You have to follow the rules. Obviously, there are sets out that you can, ultimately the state of Kansas and the Open Meetings Act follows the requirements that all meetings, once it's triggered, must be open unless, and it specifically sets out what the exceptions are under the exclusions or executive session. If it doesn't meet that definition, you have to talk about it to the public. I remember that one time that Ann looked at me one time and she was like, but what if this is like a sensitive thing? And I was like, if it's not an exception, you're going to have to talk about it. She goes, but then what about people out in the community that want to talk to me about that? And I said, what did I tell you, Ann?
Yeah, it's I can talk to them about it, but.
Yep, but you can't take any action. So I said, so what did I tell you? Ultimately, you're going to have to become a what?
I don't remember.
A politician.
Yeah.
You're going to have to become a politician. You're going to have to listen to your constituents and tell them that you are very, you appreciate their concern, that you will promptly take that at the next meeting of which they are invited to. You cannot say, don't worry about it, we'll go ahead and you don't have to worry about those taxes. Don't worry about their unfit structure, we'll just get it off the books. Don't worry about it. You can't do that. They used to do that. We can't do that now. Believe me, you don't believe me, read through some of the old minutes. So then, ultimately, you go into an executive session, but you have to do it and you have to be specific about it, okay? So basically, you have to show that there's a justification, what the subject is, and obviously the time frame, right? So we always say, okay, I make a motion that we go into executive session under KSA blank, 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 under attorney-client privilege to discuss the city manager's wages, something like that, and we do this for a period of 10 minutes, okay? You always have to do that, and obviously it has to be recorded in the minutes, what you went into executive session. You don't have to say what you're specifically going to talk about, right? So it doesn't make any sense if one of the exceptions is to talk about like a sexual harassment claim and specifically say, we're going into executive session to talk about how Neil apparently made, who am I going to pick on? Danny, made Danny very uncomfortable talking about water. That's why they don't want to come to these meetings. They only let me do this once a year. But ultimately, it doesn't do us any good, right? If you put that out there, obviously there's certain exclusions and exceptions meant to protect people. You don't want things out there if it's embarrassing, obviously. Or, in my realm, one of the worst times was when we were sitting here at a meeting and we were in the middle of talking about something like that, and then in an open meeting they go, so Jake, what's our liability on that thing? And I go, well, I'm not exactly going to discuss that right here because I'm not going to give them a roadmap. And obviously, then Eklunds are excited because we're not just throwing out there like, hey, if you'd like to sue us, here's how you do it. So, anyway, so you have to go through all of those things and you have to follow those guidelines and all of that stuff. So there are certain situations, and we've talked about it, and Kent's asked me about it a number of times, that it'll come up, be like, hey, we've got this topic, it's kind of sensitive, we want to talk about it. But I don't know if it meets an exception. We'll look. If it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, you are. You are the people's choice, and so you have to talk about some of these things in the open, right? That's the other thing. You cannot go into an executive session and have an executive session sandwich, basically. You can't say, we're going to go in and talk about attorney-client privilege to discuss the city manager's wages. And then in that same executive session, then go through and talk to me about, here's the reason why we want to affect his wage, because we have this and we have that, and he is supposed to be doing this, and I don't like that we don't have enough code enforcement, and I don't like this, that, and you see where I'm going. You can't use that and then train car off of that. The next topic, you have to come out of executive session and then go into the next executive session under the new justification for the new topic. Okay? That makes sense? All right. So all of this is fine, well, and good, and we all assume everybody's going to follow the rules and everything like that, right? But here's where it makes a difference. What if you don't? What if you say, I like what Jake's saying, but I really don't care about it, and I'm going to do it no matter what anyway? You laugh, but people do it. So what happens then if we don't, right? What's the violations occur? Basically, when you get down to it, if it's ever reported or ever determined or filed that there is a belief that you have violated the Kansas Open Meetings Act, what they do is they file a complaint against the commission to either the county attorney or to the attorney general's office. Most of the time to the attorney general's office. Then they send out what I call the probe. What they're going to do is they're going to ask for all your communications, all of your meetings, all of your minutes, every topic that you did, and we go down the list. And there really is nothing that's safe. I will tell you, that is why you have a city email address, right? Because you don't want the Hillary Clinton treatment of using your private email. I'm just saying, it's allegedly. Allegedly. But you don't want to have your private emails being used for the city's business, right? So if we were to have to respond to those, because we can't ignore them, then we want to be able just to turn over your City of Goodland emails, and we should be covered, okay? So be very diligent about only discussing Goodland stuff in your Goodland City emails, okay? So, if you still don't, and they determine there's a violation and you did it knowingly, which, quite frankly, and here's the best part from my job, you can't claim ignorance now, because I've told you. And so, what that means is you can have a civil penalty of up to $500 per violation per person, okay? And they don't care that you're a commissioner or the mayor or whatever. You, the individual, when you step outside the rules, are doing that as an individual. So you would be paying that penalty and going from there. And here's my final piece. No different than in the federal government, the state government, or anything like that. The attorney general, the solicitor general, all those people, and on down to the city attorney. My job is to make sure that you follow the rules and you do what you're supposed to. I have to do my best to do what's in the best interest of the city, and sometimes that may be against you, right? So you're elected, you're put in those places. However, if you violate the rules, if you don't do what you're supposed to, or if there are issues, then it really kind of comes down to my job then to turn that stuff over. I don't want to do that, and I haven't had to do that, but it's happened before. It's happened in Tribune, it's happened in Sharon Springs, it's happened in these areas when they don't listen to their attorney or follow the rules or do any of that stuff. So that's kind of my spiel on all of that. That's the Open Meetings Act in a nutshell. Again, Brooke, do you have any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
What about you, Ms. Arthur? No questions. Okay. Does that make sense to you, though?
Yeah.
I try to do it in like category as we go through. Here's leading up to a meeting. Here's in a meeting. Here's after the meeting. Here's the problems. And so we go from there. Okay. If anything comes up, though, obviously it is much better to answer a question than it is to answer a subpoena. So I always encourage you, if there's something that pops up, and be like, you know what, I'm going to ask Kent or I'm going to ask Jake and see if that's something we need to be worried about. It's a lot easier to do it that. There are no dumb questions. You're good. Like I said, it's really easy to do it on accident, and it's not a big deal, but don't do it. Okay? With that, I have nothing further.
Well, we appreciate the input, and that speech is the reason why every time I see JJ walking down the sidewalk, I go the other way. We'll move on to the consent agenda, items A and B. Item A is the February 18th, 2025 commission meeting minutes. And item B is appropriation ordinances 2025-05, 2025-05A, and 2025-P05. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve consent agenda items A and B.
I have a motion by Commissioner Howard,
Second?
second by Commissioner Myers. Mary, roll please.
Howard,
Yes.
Redlin.
Yeah.
Myers,
Yes.
Archer,
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes. Moving on to ordinances and resolutions. Item A, Resolution 2025-07, the 2025 GAP waiver. We'll turn it over to our gallant city commissioner, or city manager, sorry.
Members of the commission, this is something we do on an annual basis. It is a resolution and it's required if we want to follow this way. That allows us to waive the requirements according to the GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. And we end up following the generally accepted auditing standards generally accepted in the United States. GAAS, GAAS, and the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, KMAG. So it's really just a slightly different one. There was basically 25 years ago, there started to be GASB statements that came out that caused quite a bit additional work in order to meet GAAP. And so quite a few communities, in fact, the vast majority of second-class cities in Kansas go ahead and do this. They waive GAAP and go to the GAS and the KMAG for their auditing standards and for how they account for the funds of the city. And it's basically done on a cash basis. Everything's done by a cash basis rather than when it's receipted. So that's the basic gist of it. There was a lot more information that was put into it because there has been a question, because it does sound weird to waive GAAP, but what you're doing is just going to a different set of auditing standards is basically what it is, and accounting standards, how the city clerk department does their job for accounting the funds going in and out of the city. So.
Well, thank you for that explanation, and I appreciate all the extra data this year on the commissioner packet on that, so thank you.
Yes. Sorry, can I?
Go ahead, sir.
So my understanding with the GAP use for cities is it's more useful for large cities where you're not able to drive around and see what's deteriorating, what needs fixed. And since we're kind of like a smaller city, that's not necessarily as needed. Is that kind of correct?
That's part of it, and part of it is to follow GAAP, most of the cities are also trying to get to a comprehensive annual financial report. And as far as the replacement of your different assets. The one thing that I think GASB, the statements have, and especially for our size cities that you mentioned, is, the streets. We are not going to be replacing the streets every 25 or even 50 years. Now, we'll repair them, we'll make them functional, but we're not going to be replacing them. And it's the same with our water mains and our water towers and our sewer treatment plant and our water treatment plant. There's not going to be a depreciation schedule. We're going to be doing stuff to be able to make sure those things are maintained and operating at an efficient level for this size community. With the GAP, they'll want a depreciation schedule and then a schedule when you're going to replace that. We don't have the resources to be able to replace those things. So that's kind of the reason, another reason why all the communities kind of switch from it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city manager?
I move that we approve Resolution 2025-07.
I have a motion by Commissioner Myers,
Second.
second by Commissioner Howard. Mary, roll please.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Archer,
Yes.
Redlin,
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item B, Resolution 2025-08, designating depositories for the city of Goodland. Mr. City Manager?
So this one I'll defer to the city clerk, Mary Volk, because she's the main one responsible for this one.
This one is also an annual request that we're required to do. We're required to designate who our depositories are. And this is the same request as we've had in the past years. The only difference is since we've switched our main bank, we now have Western State instead of Bank West. And then we do invest money in CDs in the other three, or the other two. Is it two? Yeah, two. So they're all three listed for investment purposes.
Do we need all three banks listed in the motion, or do we just motion for the?
They're all listed in the resolution, so you just need to approve the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for our city manager or city clerk? If not, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-08, designating depositories for the city of Goodland.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Redland. Mary, roll please.
Redlin.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Archer.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
I feel like with him up there, I yell.
Does she need to yell? Can you hear her?
She's plenty loud.
Okay. Perfect. We'll move on to item C, Resolution 2025-09. It's 302 West 15th, unfit structure.
This was a result of the public hearing earlier, and Zach has presented information at a prior meeting, and you also have the statement of the building official regarding the property.
Any commissioners have any further questions on 302 West 15th? If not, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 25-09, designating 302 West 15th as an unfit structure.
Second.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Myers and a second by Commissioner Redland. Mary, roll please.
Archer.
Yes.
Redlin.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to resolution, or item D, Resolution 2025-10, 1615 Center, unfit structure.
Similar item, the building official has presented information for you. Zach, did you want to say anything regarding this property?
Not so much on this one, no.
If the owner's only been gone for a year, should we give them more time for relatives to come forward?
I
don't-
have not spoke to the son directly, but have heard that he has spoke with his attorney and was told to just put his hands up and walk away from it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I move that we approve Resolution 2025-10 as 1615 Center Avenue as an unfit structure.
Motion by Commissioner Myers,
Second.
second by Commissioner Artzer. Mary, roll please.
Myers.
Yes.
Archer.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Redlin.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item E, Resolution 2025-11, 10004 Kansas, unfit structure. Kim?
We obviously had some additional information brought forward at the public hearing. At this point, it might be worthwhile for the commissioner to have a motion to table until next meeting, and you can see what the additional communication between the owner and the building official and what type of schedule or timeline can be put together and what are the expectations going forward.
I appreciate that input, Kent. I just want to make a general statement about unfit structures and the way, I feel like this commission has moved in a direction to try to address some of these issues. I appreciate that Ms. Cowan is here, and thank you for stepping up and responding to the public hearing. I think it's important that we move forward on these issues and make sure that they're taken care of. I think we all, as commissioners, hear from time to time that the community in general wants us to take care of these issues, and they don't want to see these properties, fall into blight. So I would be in favor of tabling the motion, but I would, again, just emphasize that we do want to move forward on this and we want to see some action on it. So, if there's not any action, then at some point we would need to move forward again with this motion. Zach, do you have something else you'd like to say?
Normally, we do go ahead and declare it. That way it allows us to set the timeline. And as long as they're meeting those timelines, we can keep pushing it back if
Okay.
you guys agree to do so. And then if it does get completely fixed and rehabilitated to where it can be used again, then we can issue a new certificate of occupancy, which would then take away the unfit structure portion of it, and it would then be just a normal structure.
Sure, and that's something that we've done quite a bit since I've been here. In fact, I know that we've done that just about every time that we've had an owner come forward and want to make, improvements to the project and take care of it. So, legally, we set that, kind of timer going just to make sure that everybody understands that this is something that we take serious and we want to see movement on it. So,
Yeah, because it's a difference as far as what your requirements are. Up until the time that it's declared an unfit structure, the city really has no say into what goes into it. So by declaring it, we're already saying, okay, it meets the definition, therefore it is an unfit structure. But the process then going forward through our code allows for the additional times or continuances or whatever, and to follow along that time frame too. So, yep.
appreciate that. Anybody else have any questions?
I just want to make sure that's clear to Mrs. Cowan.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
So when you're saying declare, you're declaring it abandoned?
It would
Or
be
declaring what?
that it meets the definition of an
Oh,
unfit
right,
structure.
yeah, sorry.
And then obviously that's just the action they take, and that's what then puts it quote unquote on there in that category. So then when you meet with Zach, he goes over all of the code violations that are in there, and essentially just starts your bullet points as far as this is what needs to be fixed to essentially abate the process and then get you out of there.
It's not that we're not giving you time to fix it, but we are giving you time to fix it if you communicate.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
If not, I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2025-11, declaring 1004 Kansas unfit structure.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Myers. Mary, roll please.
Redlin.
Yes.
I have to think of his name. Howard.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Archer.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes. Moving on to item F, resolution 2025-12, all-way stop sign at 12th and Main Street. Okay.
We've discussed this over the last couple meetings regarding the intersection of 12th Street and Main. Dustin has reported a couple different times regarding the cost, as far as the cost to make the stoplights functional. We obviously have a larger issue than just a minor repair on the stoplights at this point. When we discussed this a little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, regarding 11th Main and 12th Main, regarding a traffic engineering study, it had recommended that both set of stoplights, there weren't warrants for the stoplights themselves. As a result of that, we had gone ahead with the removal of the stoplights at 11th and Main and replaced it with a two-way stop sign for the east-west traffic. With this one, there seemed to be a general consensus or direction to staff to go ahead and present a resolution, but to have all-way stop sign or four in all four directions. And then to do something additional, which Ken has provided some information we've discussed among staff members about how to do that to make it more visible for the stop signs, especially while they're getting in the habit, as City Attorney Clay helped us understand at the last meeting. So the resolution before you has, it removes the stoplights and then would have the 4 different stop signs in all 4 directions at that intersection.
Reading through the past year when we were talking about, what is it, 11th? The other stoplight we took out. We had talked about putting speed limit signs on Main Street. Did we?
There are speed limit signs
there?
at various locations on Main Street.
Okay.
We do not have them on every block, but there are at a few different locations along Main Street between 8th and 17th.
Okay.
There are also north of 8th, but the commercial corridor, there are at a couple different locations.
Okay.
I'd probably ask Ken to come up and tell me exactly where they're at. I don't know if I have it.
I'm sure we can't tell you exactly. Every other block, so.
Every other
Okay.
block.
I think that's the same way with all of your, U-turn signs, it's about every other block.
Okay.
But if you guys, if I'm wrong, we could always add some more to it, so.
Thanks, Kevin.
And I will say I spoke with a couple businesses on Main about this 4-way stop to see, like, get their opinion on it. And the 2 that I talked to were both in favor, citing speeding, just people kind of going kind of crazy down Main Street. So that's good to know that some businesses are on board with it as well.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions about this proposed resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-12.
I have a motion by Commissioner Redland,
Second.
second by Commissioner Howard. Mary, roll, please.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Archer, Showalter.
Yes. Thank you. Move on to formal actions, renewal of the property and liability insurance. Welcome back, Jackie.
Right.
Jake stole that from me, because I say it every year, and now he says his piece is the favorite time.
Just had the Oscar yesterday. It's gonna get made today.
It's like our second or third favorite time of the year.
Right.
Is it the most boring?
No, absolutely not. Anytime JJ talks is the most boring.
Yeah, probably.
I've been here so coming to be so long, JJ used to not have glasses.
That's right.
One of these, and you're going to have it, do you want me to do?
Sure. Sure, I would love
Sure you do. Okay, well, thanks for having me. Mary and Kent and I got together last week and had a very nice discussion. I really appreciate them spending the better half of an hour with me talking about insurance. I find it great. Kent, he's a little iffy on the subject. He's always like, Jackie. So I think this came in your packet. As you look at it from left to right, you can see the expiring premium and the proposed. In the middle is the expiring and proposed limits, and then at the right are the deductibles. Nothing really exciting there. None of the limits changed unless we changed them, like we did change some equipment, we did delete some vehicles. Other than that, there was no changes on part of EMC for making any changes. Deductibles, still the same. So we kind of walk through this sheet. General liability, again, the limits are the same. Your employment benefits liability, still $1 million. Getting down to the autos, you can see we did take off a few autos. Those were the fire trucks. Deductibles still $1,000, $3,000 on higher valued items like the semis and stuff. Anything that has a big actual cash value does have a higher deductible. And we still have the $120,000 of garage keepers. So just so you understand, those would be the cars you impounded from somebody else that would be stored. That is $1,000 deductible. Crime, that's still all the same. And then we get down to the fun part, the property. And what I have given you is the property limits for all of the property that we have insured. If you pull that sheet out and look at it, you will see that everything is special form, everything is replacement. If you start doing some math there, or some of those buildings jump out at you and you go, holy moly, that went up a lot. EMC does do replacement cost estimators on some of them, and some of them they didn't, so they just went up by a percentage of usually less than 10%. But I did want to kind of explain to you guys about replacement cost. I know you all own property, so you probably see your homeowner's insurance, and it goes up probably 3 or 4% every year. But what goes into that is, to get the estimator, they always ask for the year built, how many square feet, what the use of the building is, and every software has a multiplier, and they put all those things in, and that's how they spit out the replacement. So Kent and Mary and I did have a couple questions on a couple of buildings, and a couple of them I'm like, that's really high. So I went and ran the replacement cost estimator, and no, it's really not. Sometimes you have to remember that this is what it costs to rebuild it, not to sell it. So the values do get high. The other thing about it is you guys are on a blanket, which does give you more flexibility, but it also has a co-insurance limit. And even if it wasn't on a blanket, you'd have a co-insurance limit. But your co-insurance limit is 100%, which means you have to be very astute at having those values insured correctly, because if not, you would get a co-insurance penalty should you suffer a loss. So easy math, you have a building that's 100,000, but you have it insured for 50. You have a loss. I don't care what the loss is, just take that amount of the loss and divide it in half, because you're going to get a 50% co-insurance penalty. So that's why the inflation guard is there. That's why EMC takes the time to go through. That's why Kent and Mary and I kind of revisit it and make sure that the limits are the same, or are where they should be. The second piece, the piece that's not stapled, is the output policy. The 2 buildings over there at the power plant. Are there any questions on that before does anybody have any questions about the property? No? Okay, then just moving on, if you flip over to the back, the inland marine, that is where the biggest, for the second year in a row, they took the biggest rate increase. And I can contribute that probably to these machines that you guys are buying. Used to be, $100,000, and now they're easily $5 million. So I don't think companies have, with everything else, kept up with the rates, and it's starting to show as they have these losses on equipment and such. And then you get down to the law enforcement and the public entity liability, and that stuff has stayed the same. The only thing I don't have, because it is super early, is the cyber liability quote. I'm sure it's going to go up a little bit, but there shouldn't be any changes to it. Let's see. Oh, I did want to mention that the overall premium increase was 7%. The good news is the KMU program, which the city is a part of, which has, EMC has its own program for municipalities. And as long as that program makes money, they pay it back to you guys. And usually we get it in July, and I always send you guys an email and let you know. You're going to get it sooner, because they already know you're getting $27,381.95 back. And EMC says they're going to come deliver it. Now, I doubt it. It's probably me. But they did say we're going to hit the road and visit these people. So maybe Mary Kent will get a visit from somebody from EMC. So what questions do you have for me?
Could you maybe go into a little bit more detail about what exactly is covered under our policy for our generators at the power plant?
So the generators at the power plant, like we had this discussion the other day, because we're like, well, nothing could ever wipe them out. Because they're obviously really big. But I was having the conversation with my underwriter as we were talking about it, because it was one thing we thought maybe we wanted to think about taking off. He said that he just had a claim in a city where, and don't laugh at me because my mechanics of this probably isn't right because I don't understand how this stuff works, but it was really cold and the turbine got cold and it froze up the water pump. And when they went to turn it on, the fan flew into the generator and destroyed the generator. Most of the claims you would have off of a generator would be something to do with equipment breakdown, just like that. So I did talk to EMC about, well, what about if we just didn't insure those generators? And they said, if you do that, we won't insure those two buildings or anything at that power plant. That would be off the table because they said so many times those generators cause fires, cause those buildings to burn down. They said, advise your city not to get rid of the output policy. They really should keep it.
Okay.
So, does that help?
That does. I just, wanted a little bit of clarification because, of course, that's a
It's
pretty
a
big
big
chunk of our,
premium, yeah.
our premium right there. It's half of our property insurance. So,
Yep.
would there, I'm not saying that we're going to do this, but would there ever be a scenario where we could maybe insure some of them? We have to insure all of them together. We have to insure every specific generator. We couldn't pick 2 generators, insure those, leave the other 2 uninsured.
I don't think, I can ask. I don't think they'd let you do that, but I could ask.
And I know Dustin's probably wanting to throw something at me there, but just looking at different things we can think about, because that is a pretty big chunk of money, so.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, comments, or concerns for Mrs. Eklund?
Could you just call me Mrs.
I
Eklund?
did, I'm sorry.
You can go with Miss Eklund.
Miss Eklund, sorry. Any other questions for Miss Lightengood? That better?
I don't care. I just thought it was funny. Mrs. Eklund. No, I'm not Mrs. Eklund.
Sorry.
Please don't call me that.
Any other questions for Jackie?
Perfect.
Yes, there we go. Trying to do 2 for me. Anything online? Okay. With that, I would make a motion to renew the property and liability insurance.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner online. Mary, would you please take roll?
Redlin,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Archer,
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes. Thank you, Jackie. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'll be back next year.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to our discussion items. Item A, S4C's discussion for quitclaim deed and details.
Members of the commission, we met over from the last meeting, we had a discussion regarding the Child Care Coalition being ready to move forward. And then there just needs to be some details worked out as far as how would we make that happen. David Blocklinger was kind enough to stop by in his travels and have a conversation, and we talked for quite a while. And then Jake and I had a conversation today, and I'll very shortly turn this over to City Attorney Kling. Basically, because there's, probably 3 different things that we want to make sure are included in any quitclaim deed. And this was discussed with David last week as well, as far as because of the way this is shaping up and how this project is occurring, it presents different types of potential outcomes that the city should be aware of as it moves forward. So, those include, and now I'll hand it over to Jake as far as those items. So we're talking the same language as we go along here. So
basically, we talked about not the concern, but just had the real discussion and the reality of okay, we're donating this piece of property specifically to this group for this project, right? And we want, we always want to have it in the back of our mind that, like I said, it's always great when the people in this room are the ones that are still in those chairs and doing that, everybody's on the same page. But that doesn't mean that that's always going to be the same people and they do different things. So you try to be kind of proactive about those things, put safe gaps in there and stuff like that. So the way that I was kind of thinking through it and what I had kind of talked about with Kent was the idea of like, okay, we probably want to put stop gaps in there just leading up to a certain point that if certain conditions aren't met or aren't done, whatever, that the city would have the ability to get the property back in their name, right? So the way that I tried to think through it was as far as the actual process of the project. So the easy part is you donate the property and they don't ever break ground or create construction, right? You probably want a time frame attached to that being like, look, we'll donate the property, but if it's not started construction within 2 years, then it's going to revert back, right? No harm, no foul, nobody's out anything, nothing's wrong, right? And that's an easy time frame, right? Second thing is, what if we start ground, break ground and all that other stuff, and again, we have enough money to almost complete the project, but then we have to wait for more grant funds or whatever. So let's just say you get the shell of it built, but it still hasn't been finished on the inside or whatever. And HVAC, something hasn't been done yet. Do you want to put a stopgap on there to where we have it when it's construction has started and that the certain time frame for when construction must be completed? And then ultimately the end-all be-all goal is that the thing starts and becomes a daycare facility. So the way that's kind of how I was thinking about that, I know it was thrown out there before, like what if it ceases to be a daycare facility, or what if it sells, or whatever, right? And stuff like that. That's really more for your guys' discussion. I believe it would be prudent, obviously, to have a starting date of construction has to start within this time frame. If it hasn't, it goes back to the city. Construction needs to be completed by this time frame. If it's not completed, go back to the city, and there can be ins and outs as far as how you assess that. And then ultimately, if you determine that if we donate the property, it gets built, it is completed, do we care what happens after that? If we do, maybe you just say that the date that they start operations, it's staffed, and the kids are starting to show up at the property. And but that's up to you guys, right? Where or what time frames or what you're thinking. I personally, off the cuff, I feel it's appropriate to say, okay, we'd like to see construction started within 2 years. From the start of construction, we would like we would like it completed within 2 years. And after that, it's kind of up to you guys on what you want to do. But again, that's completely up to you. They're arbitrary numbers in my book. I just threw it out there as a thing. That's all. Because the concern is, again, my hat's off to them, a group of individuals that decided they saw a need and they want to fill that need. The reality is, though, it's a narrow topic. It is a specific project group. So the point being is the probabilities of it having something that would happen, whether it shuts down or you don't get the grant funds, or say the grant funds just get denied. I mean, something like that. It kind of takes away the process, it takes away the project, and therefore it kind of dismantles the whole whole group. Or say something happens, again, just call it what it is. Say you end up with another global pandemic, and then so you can't meet or can't do anything. You laugh, but I'm just saying, who would be sitting there? I was saying December of 2019, everybody was footloose and fancy free. By March, everybody was gone. So, but anyway, say something happens and they can't meet, and it's been a year goes by, and then all of a sudden you never reconvene, and the project you just done. I mean, it just happens. So I just think it'd be prudent to have some type of stopgaps in there, at least to the completion of the project, so that it starts becoming a daycare facility, and then there'd be no further reversion in as far as that goes. But that's really up to you guys. I mean, that's purely just discussion.
Mr. Blocklear.
So, I hope I kind of brought this up. I don't know if I'm hearing this right. It's saying, okay, if in 4 years this doesn't work, the city wants their lot back. If that's the case, we could have bought this lot a year and a half ago. But what I said to Kent, the example I gave him was, well, I'm just gonna throw out $7 grand, $7, $8 grand, somewhere in there. We could spend that money right now, but then when we get it built, that could be our heater. You get what I'm saying? So I guess to have cleared out a whole bunch of red tape and all that stuff, we could have just, I get that. But what and I hope this is what I'm hearing, that in 4 years, this isn't running and you're just gonna take it back. I feel like if there's some kind of agreement, we don't have it in 4 years, and we can't do it, we're probably folding anyhow. I don't mind paying the city what the lot is worth at some point, but if we put $200,000 into it, I don't want to be up against a timeline for $7,000. Or you get what I'm saying? That we could have just got in the first place and not had the red tape. Is that what I'm hearing or not?
It depends on where you're talking about though, right, David? Because at the end of the day, and I guess here's, I'm not hiding anything, I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. We would catch holy hell if we donate the property, great cause, great people, and then if it only partially gets built,
Sure.
and then it just sits there. We from the city standpoint, people would be very upset, and understandably so, no matter what the quote-unquote marketable value is or whatever, right? But I guess, and that's not the concern. You gotta understand the world I have to live in versus the world that you guys are talking about, right? Mine is more of the fallout provision. And again, don't handcuff yourself to the 4 years, just say, I purely threw it out as a number, right? But the idea being that if you get the project started, great, so we got a stopgap, good, we've started construction. Then if you get a completion date, 2, 3, whatever years, then once it's completed, if that's then the end, and the city doesn't have any interest in it, wonderful. And in my opinion, I think that's what makes the most sense. So once you get it to where it is ready to become operational, fantastic. The problem is though, until it gets completed, it would be. We would have people in here, because we've not specifically dealt with something like this, but it's similar situations that I've been here, that the city has helped with something and then it turned around and kind of blew up in their face because like, well, you didn't do anything to make sure that they completed it.
Sure.
And so, that's all.
If at the end of the day, you got your people are complaining it's not getting done and we can't do it, which is an option, I get that.
Sure.
If we paid you for the lot, what do they have to do?
That it's out there, they'll do it. Here's my other thing, that's also on the presumption though, that you're still in operation, right? The whole idea is you're gonna get the grant money, you're gonna do all of that stuff. But what happens if you start into the project and then something happens, your grant fund, something gets pulled and you're halfway through a project? And now you don't have any money and there's nothing for you to do.
I guess, and this is just me personally, maybe this isn't for the middle of this meeting. I feel like we're getting close to 3 years on this. And it seems to me like if in 4 years, we just end up just closing it down and giving it back to the city. I'm not saying that the city wouldn't do something good with it, but there's a lot of people who put a lot of work in and will probably put more work in the future. And if I've got to give you $200,000 worth of a home for the promise of a $7,000 lot 3 years ago, I just don't think that's right, if that makes any sense. And I hope that I'm explaining this correct. That you would get your, if anything, if this failed, you would get what this lot is worth. That's not in question. It's not, but that's why I don't want, I don't feel comfortable with saying, hey, if this doesn't work, city wants this property back, because we're gonna put too much money into it in the meantime. Does that make sense? Am I on the right page?
I appreciate it. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think you're kind of hinging on the wrong thing. Just me personally, because I think I hear what you're communicating. What you're getting lost on is that's on the presumption that you're still in operation. Because the property will get deeded to your organization. If you run out of grant funds and you don't have any more funds, you're still just volunteers, but at the end of the day, that's on the presumption that S4C continues to exist.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
but yet, the county rules and the city and all that stuff, if it's deeded into this name of this corporation and it ultimately no longer exists, we got a problem. Because now what do you do with it?
Right.
It's not so much about the money, and again, as asinine as that sounds, that's not really what I'm securing or what I'm trying to make sure that we cover here. It's the idea of like, okay, you get this, it was a city lot, it was given to this corporation, corporation started to build this property, something happened, loss of money, funds, whatever, right? And all of a sudden it's there. Or, next thing, say in the middle of the project, it ends up, you have an electrical fire or something, or say some jerk decides to go over there and light it up.
Yeah, and we do have insurance.
That's great,
I mean, we're
that's
working on
wonderful,
it.
and I appreciate that, but what I'm saying is that if something was to occur, though, that you could not finish the project then, that's where, and if you don't exist anymore, or something occurred, whatever, right? And it's hard for me to say the if, ands, or whats, because it can happen, I've seen it happen. That's what I'm talking about. It's not a matter of like, oh, I know an easy way for the city to make $200,000. That's not the case, obviously. That's not what I'm talking about. So if you get to a point, though, where you complete the project, fantastic, that's it. What I'm talking about is, what if, in the event that this doesn't get completed and there's no one there? The whole intention of the project was we're donating this to complete the project of a childcare facility,
Sure.
right? And by all accounts, the reality that I can see and what I perceive is you get this deeded to you, you're gonna find a contractor, you're gonna start breaking ground, working on that, do your fundraisers, do all that stuff, and bada bing, bada boom. 6 months from now, you got doors open. Great, wonderful, we're done, we're out of here.
That would be great.
Don't give me that, I know you can do it. If you wanna push back on me on 200,000, then I'm gonna give you a dream. So, but really though, in reality, that's the goal, right? That's the ideal. But the problem is that you're falling into is you think that your organization is gonna be jilted out of money.
It's not jilted, because we wouldn't be, if this doesn't work, Jake, and I've said this here, I think at least twice, I get this might not make it, but at the end of the day, and this was, yeah, you're the attorney, I'm assuming, that would have to be sold. You know, I mean, we couldn't just walk away from it and you go condemn it.
Right. But David, you keep losing sight of what I'm saying. That's on the presumption that your organization is still there.
I guess it's trying to provide a fail-safe so that an entity can actually dispose of the property,
Correct.
is really what it's getting down to. If the Sherman Four Cs doesn't exist, it won't be able to sell the property. It won't have to have a legal sale.
Say you don't have any volunteers left, say that something happens
But
and you
let's
guys
say,
are
let's
gone.
say we exist and we get this built and it takes us another year and a half to get the funds to finish it and another year and a half to get somebody in it. At what point, are you just saying that if we as a group vote to say, okay, we're disbanding this because it's not working, this is gonna revert back to the city?
No, I'm saying if you don't finish the project, what I'm talking about is in the event that it doesn't even break ground, okay? That's fair. The next one is if it never even gets completed, meaning your structure doesn't meet code, basically, right?
Sure.
That's it. That's all I'm talking about. As long, if you're in there and you get halfway through the project and all of a sudden you're just like, yeah, look, guys, this isn't gonna work or whatever, right? Then that's up to you guys on how you wanna dispose of it, and that is your prerogative.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was misunderstanding that. Was everybody else getting this? And it was just me?
No, if we're still a corporation in S4C.
Yeah.
And we can't finish this and it's half built, the shell's unclosed, and we just can't finish it, there's no money, our deadline's coming up.
Do we have the ability to sell
Then
it?
we can,
Yeah.
then we can
Okay.
sell it,
But-
I'm talking about dormancy.
Gotcha. Okay, thank
but
you.
then we can sell it.
Problem
That's
solved. I wasted 15 minutes of that.
Yeah, I think it's just looking at the fail-safes
If we all get mad at each
Yeah.
other and move
No.
to California.
to make sure that there's,
And you have no corporation.
If you're all moving to California,
I'm not
you can
going.
take the child care coalition. But what I'm talking
I
about
follow you
is,
now, Jake. I'm
is
sorry.
it giving it to an organization, wonderful, fantastic. But what if, in doing so, though, it doesn't get completed? And so it just sits there,
Yeah.
and then that is.
I follow exactly. what
Yeah,
you're
so like we
saying.
run into the same thing with the code enforcement stuff too, right? We already talked about it, you got an unfit structure, but the guy has died, so there's nobody there. And there's only so many things the city can do, but yet it's a dilapidated building and all this other stuff, but there's only so many things we can do. In this situation, wonderful, but the problem could arise though, that it just goes dormant.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
all.
Sorry.
Sorry, Jay. Fine.
And there could be, and make sure regarding the language, and that's why I was talking about, we need to talk about this bit before creating the agreement. So we get out the dead ends where we can agree and make sure we have the correct agreement
Yeah.
for them to approve, so. And for you guys to approve, because you're the other parties to the agreement.
Was there another part that I cut you off in front of?
No, I'm just saying that, in my view, those are the most like black and white, like checkpoints from the city standpoint.
You were right.
That there's no judgment call there. It's just like, is it done? Great, boom, you're off,
Gotcha.
off and running.
So what did you guys think about the 2 years part? Was that something that you thought,
2 years to start, 2 years to get it going? Or you mean like?
2 years
from
to
right now,
break ground,
within
2 years to finish it?
What's your
So
tentative?
4 years total? Beautiful.
Essentially, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So whether we break ground tomorrow, we still have 4 years, which we don't want to have 4 years to get it finished.
okay, so Janice has already been to get it.
Hold on, so we got
My thought is, I guess, let's do it, in my opinion, either one way or the other. You just say from the time that it's donated, the project will be completed within 4 years.
That's good.
Or do it as 2 years to break ground. Once it breaks ground, then you've got 2 years to complete the
Now
project.
let's go for it.
You like that? We good with that?
Yeah, but we
What's
don't
your
know
tentative timeline?
Yesterday.
I would hope, as far as breaking ground, I think it'll be within 2 months. As far as finishing it, I can't say, other than I would be very disappointed if in a year and a half, we don't have this done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, way before that. We wanna
See,
get
I'm
that.
kind of cheerleading for it.
She's already over there with a hammer and
Yeah.
nails. She's just waiting for the permit.
It's half built.
That's what I think. However, okay, COVID, just something else comes around, something happens. We filed for something and don't get it. I would like the 4 years just to say, let's just be safe.
Yeah, if we have to weather through something that is
Yeah.
unforeseen, like money is stuck, but then it won't get released, or whatever, that would be nice to have before years.
I have no issue with that timeline at all. I appreciate you guys continually coming back here and working with us on it. I think it's important that the city play a role in this to show that this is something that we want to help with too. So thank you for your hanging with us while we work through our stuff here. So.
This went so much better than with Zelensky.
Did it?
Oh,
I just want
Well,
to
you
say
got an
thank you
ocean.
for all you do. I've learned a lot just coming to the meetings about what goes into running the city, so I appreciate it.
We're all still learning on this side of the table, so.
If you want to have a lot of fun, Janice, you need to come to city court.
Maybe not. I think I know some people that are involved in that.
So, just because we're meeting with our regular meeting is tomorrow, it's the first Tuesday of the month, and our contractor's gonna be there. Is there a timeline? I mean, do you have a timeline to have this contract, have it signed by us, have it signed by you, or
So,
whatnot?
so it won't even be a contract, it'll be a reversion language on the deed itself, so it's just a matter of putting the deed together with the language in there and make sure everybody's good with it. So basically, the way that I would anticipate it is I'll put that together, present it to them at their next meeting. That's 2 weeks. They can look at it, they approve it, present it to you guys, you good with it, and essentially you'll see at the same time they will, and then we're good to
And
go.
one thing I think you can tell the builder is we basically have an agreement in principle, if that's the consensus of the commission.
I like the 4 years.
I like the 4 years. I don't think we need to do the, like, breaking ground
Breaking it
date
down.
and the completion date. I think if we just give a 4 years, if this is dormant within 4 years and not completed, this is
Because we don't want it back.
easy. No.
Just don't want the neighbors coming and asking why,
Yeah. no,
stuff,
I'll-
so. But you can tell the builder, it's basically an agreement in principle. It's really just formality at this point to present, have the actual document presented to them and get them to approve it, so.
See you in 2 weeks.
You won't even have to come, we'll just mail it to you.
Unless Commissioner Redland had an objection to anything that's said. I don't know, Mayor, you might.
Do you have any input, Commissioner Redland?
No, I'm in agreement. I think, I don't know if it's 2 years or 4 years. I'm open to whatever that is. We just, come up with a year that we all agree upon, and like, once it's done, like, once the project is complete, then we're done. Like, we're out of it.
Yep.
Yep.
General consensus, I think here was 4 years. Are you okay with that?
That's totally fine with me. If everyone else likes 4 years, we can work with 4 years.
Build us a daycare.
Build us a daycare.
All right, thanks. Okay. Thank you, guys. All right, move on to reports. Mr. City Manager.
I was gone for a week, and then there isn't much to provide as in addition to the management memo, other than the stuff that's been presented on the agenda already. We have had included in the update is the county is considering regarding their parking lot at their road department. That's brought up a question for us regarding a water line project that was already talked about regarding the 8th Street project. Staff is still discussing it at this time, so we haven't come to a decision as far as that goes. Once that is, we'll be able to present something to you for that. So,
Thank you. Any questions for our city manager? Okay. Then we'll move on to commissioners' reports. Let's start online with Commissioner Redland.
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Artzer.
I had a gentleman approach me about the condition of the flag at the police department. I told him I would bring it up in the city meeting and just bring that to everyone's attention. I guess he said it was not in the best condition.
okay,
Yeah,
we'll get it taken care of.
cool. Thank you.
He's out in the hallway now.
Mr. Myers.
Nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Howard.
I'd just like to thank all the city employees that goes out for everybody in the offices and that's out doing all the work on everything. I appreciate it because if we didn't have you people, we wouldn't have a city that looked as good and is ran as good as what we do have. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
And for the mayor's report, I'd just say thank you specifically to Mary. I appreciate you hanging out with us every night and taking the minutes and doing the stuff behind the camera over there that doesn't get seen all the time. So thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. Okay. Heard that.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome. And with that, I would make a motion to go into executive session under the authority of KSA 75-431-4319B, Section 2, for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in an attorney-client relationship for a period of 10 minutes? 15 minutes.
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Howard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. this meeting back to order. And with that, I would make a motion under authority KSA 75-4319B2 for consultation with an attorney regarding, for a public body which would be deemed privileged by attorney-client privilege. I'll make a motion to go into executive session with our city manager and our city attorney.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Howard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Be for a period of 5 minutes. Call this meeting back to order. Do we have any other further business that needs to come before the commission? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
A second? No.
I'm going to make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn the
I have
meeting.
a motion by Commissioner Artzer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thanks, Brooke. Sarah did.